Hello everyone, this is Cher from CHER&CHARLIES Personal Crafts. If you already know me, hi everyone. If you don't, I do a lot of personal crafting. Sometimes I tell stories like I'm going to tonight, personal stories or that sort of thing, or my feelings or my beliefs. Not too political, but you know what I mean. I hope. And I love crafting. Every now and then I'll do a Dollar Tree haul, but mainly I'm a DIYer. I've been a little down on the weather because I'm a little sick, but I've had a 2-day upswing, and that happens to me every now and then. I don't know why. I believe it's the man above, but I decided to do this story about my mother, Gerry, in my bedroom. Why? Because one, I fell yesterday, and it was a really bad fall, and I'm not kidding you. I tripped over the dog's leash, and I almost caught myself, and then instead I did like a torpedo face forward on my side, and my side is killing me. And I thought, well, if I'm going to tell the story of my mom, it's going to be tough, but I feel more comfortable in my bedroom because I feel safe and secure, and it's a little more comfortable. So this is my room, and I have these homemade pillows I made, and I'm going to put them underneath my underneath my breastbone, because I think I did a little damage to my ribs. I have a makeshift thing for my tripod, because the tripod's not a real expensive one. It's a cheapie. And I'm going to give this a shot. Now, the funny thing is, I had written a story about my mom back when I was in my early 30s, and I went back to college. And I got a really good grade on it, and it opened up something in me that I hadn't realized existed. Hold on. I had to move things around a little bit because I'm in a little bit of pain, but I really want to do this. So I looked for the story that I had written back then. If you are young, which mostly you guys are around my age or younger, maybe older, I don't know. We typed everything with a typewriter. So that's what I did. Well, I had a computer, very alienish, and when I 30 some years ago, but I would type it on the computer, and then we would print it out. I guess that's how you do it today, but it was much different. So anyway, I didn't realize how deep and emotional I was about my mom dying. I really didn't. I was 5 years old, and so I don't have a whole lot of pictures of my mother. My brothers do. They have more of the pictures than I do. But there's a topic in this that I was hesitant to talk about, simply because, sorry about this, hold on. Okay. Simply because I got a makeshift thing here, so I'm awful sorry. It's a touchy subject, but I think it's an important subject, and one that has always somehow reached deep into my soul about what was right, what was wrong, or maybe there isn't a right or wrong. This is the story of my mom. My mother, here's a picture of her before we get started. And the 2 babies are me, so I want you to get a good picture of her. This is right before she died. She didn't look so great there. And the 2 babies are me, and that's, of course, I was only a baby, but she lived till she was 26 years old. Sorry about the glare in here. Let me see if I can get rid of it. There you go. She was 26 years old, had 3 kids, ages of 2, my brother Bobby was a baby, 5, me, and my older brother Lee, 7. So this is how it started. My mom and dad were young. My dad was a little older than my mom, But he worked a lot hard and worked a couple jobs, and I'm sure they had troubles, and money problems, and we were poor. My dad worked really hard to support us, but I know it was a hard time for him and my mom. So here's a picture of my dad and my oldest brother, Lee. Trying to get, there you go. That's my father. He was very handsome, and then he boxed and broke his nose a million times. But that's my father when he was around the time, before my mother died. And so I'm sure they had problems. I don't know the depth of them. I only know what my family told me. And I learned a lot when I got older. So I named this story Mystery Winter. I looked for it. I went crazy. I figured I know exactly where I put it so I could do this, because I've been wanting to do it for several months. I couldn't find the paper. And I was going to read it off the paper to make it simpler, but I can't find it, so I guess in some respects maybe God wants me to just tell you the story from my heart. It was, I remember I started, it was December of 1960, and we had a blizzard, a really bad blizzard. So bad, I mean, the cars back then were not like today. They didn't have the big SUVs and all. They were really having a hard time coming up and down the road. It was really bad. And like I said, I was 5. My baby brother was 2. He was in bed, and my older brother and I woke up to some screaming and hollering. It was like maybe 3 a.m. And let me take a break here to get my body adjusted. Okay, sorry about that. So it was like 3 a.m, and me and my brother Lee heard a lot of screaming and hollering, and my father panicked. So I heard my father make a phone call, and it was to, let me move this a little bit, a man named Dr. Pfister. Back then they would do house calls, but there was no way he was going to do a house call with the weather the way it was. There was no way. And I remember hearing my father say, my mother is bleeding, and she's really in bad shape, and he thought it was just a regular woman thing, time in a month or whatever, but I knew it was really a serious thing. So me and my brother kind of snuck up out of our bedrooms. We had a very small house, and I looked into the room, and I don't want to get into detail, but I saw my mother moaning in pain, and it was not a good sight for a little girl to have in her memory. And my brother Lee, I just remember he wasn't so interested, but he was there, kind of wondering what was going on. So, being inquisitive little kids, I guess the doctor said to my father to call an ambulance, that it sounded a lot more serious than my father had thought. So, and I knew it was. I knew it. Even as a 5-year-old, I knew this is bad. My father hollered at us to get into the back kitchen. We had a kitchen and then a hallway that ran past the kitchen. And back in the kitchen was a spare bedroom. He didn't want me and my brother Lee, I guess, to see what was going on. So I remember I looked out the front window. Like I said, we had a really small house. And back then in the day, they had, in the 60s, early 1960, they had their ambulances were very low to the ground, almost like an old-time station wagon. Back in maybe the 1960 station wagons, they were really flat. I don't even know how they got them in the ambulance. But I looked out the front window, and the lights were going, and the snow was falling, and I remember all the lights and my father hollering at me to get back into the kitchen. So I went back there, and I know he didn't want us to look out, And so I saw my mother being taken out in an ambulance in a stretcher, and I had written on my paper, and I don't know if this was something in my mind that I wanted to see or something I remembered, but I said that her hand was white, and very pale, and she was pale and moaning in pain. That I do remember that, but that her hand kind of fell off the side as if to say goodbye. And I love to write, so I don't know if I just emphasized that or really imagined it in my head or saw it, but I know I saw my mother leave, and she was moaning in pain. That I know. So with that being said, my mother never came home. And we waited and waited and waited, and we probably asked questions, and it was December 11th, so it was only a couple weeks before Christmas, so that's why I do not like Christmas. And I don't like the smell of rubber dolls, the brand new rubber dolls, because my father, we had a hall closet, and because he wanted us not to think about our mom so much, which we were, he brought us down something he got from the closet that our mother probably, or Santa Claus probably got us for Christmas, you know. And so he gave me this rubber doll, and I loved dolls when I was a little girl. And so I had this little rubber doll, and I remember that smell. I'll never forget that smell. So, and I think he gave my brother Lee a truck. I'm not sure, but I don't know what he gave Bobby. I don't remember. So days went by, and then I never knew what happened, but I found out later what happened. My grandmother took us for a ride in the car, me and my brother Lee. I think Bobby, I don't even know if Bob was there, he was so little. And she got us ice cream, and she said, I want to tell you kids something. And back then, there were no seatbelts. I'm taking a little break. Thank you, I had to get a little drink. There were no seatbelts, but I remember, and if you guys are around my age, there was always a hump, and I don't know what the hell for, excuse my language, heck. I'll bleep that out. But I was leaning on the hump, leaning into the back of seats of my grandma's car, and she said, I want to tell you kids that your mommy went to heaven. And I'm thinking, well, that's obvious because she didn't come home. You know, I remember thinking that. And my grandmother, we said, well, where is she? Why did she die? What happened? Or why did she go to heaven? And my grandmother said, because the angels wanted. She said that the angels call for certain people that Jesus loves, and they wanted my mom. And then she went to heaven. So I remember that. I'm pretty sure Bob was there, but I know that me and my brother Lee never said a word. We never said a word. So that was it. That was how I found out my mother died. So as the years went on, I started doing a little investigating, and I tried and tried to get it out of my dad. And my father had told me that she had a tubal pregnancy, and that was like in my 20s. He said that to me because I pushed him to find out. My brothers, I think Bobby pushed him a lot for truth, and I don't think Lee did, because my brother Lee is the same. He's quiet, he's introverted, and he was the oldest, so he knows more than me and Bob know. So years went by, a little more, and I met my aunt, my mother's sister, which I hadn't seen her all my life, and I only met her when I was in my late 30s when I got married to my husband that passed away. I was like 37, and I wanted to find her, and she gave me more details, and she told me that my mom had gotten pregnant, and she didn't want my father to know, and I don't think she wanted any more children because 26 years old, she had 3 kids. They were struggling financially. They were having some hard times, I'm sure, in their marriage. And I don't think my mother could take it, any more kids. And I have to also tell you that we have mental illness in our family. Maybe that's why, But seriously, though, we do have mental illness, depression, anxiety in our family. And no wonder. Because my mother lost her sister, and she went through a lot growing up. She was put in a home a couple times because my grandmother had mental illness, her mother, and she ended up killing herself. I think right after my mother died, she killed herself. But she had a hard time raising her kids. So I pushed for more information. I wanted to know the truth. So my aunt told me the truth, that my mom got pregnant. She didn't want my father to know. She didn't want anyone to know. And back in the 60s, abortions were not legal. If you were going to have an abortion, you had to go underground and find something, which she did. And the reason I saw all the blood, because my mom had decided not to have her baby and do it herself. She kind of went underground and got what she needed, and it turned out that she had kept it to her dying day, and I mean it, to her deathbed. She was so ashamed to tell anyone, because she was a devout Catholic, and that was a major sin. So my mother literally took it to her grave, never told anyone that she was pregnant. She may have told her sisters, one of her sisters or two of them, but they kept it a secret. And my mother took that to her grave. She didn't even tell them, I don't think, when she went to the hospital, which is where I was born, and my two brothers were born. And she took it to her grave, and the last words that she said to my dad, which I got out of my father before he died, I had pressured him and took him and we were having some Christmas cookies, and I said, Dad, I want to know, the story that I wrote for school, is this true? Hold on. Okay. What happened to Mommy? And my father read the paper, the one that I wrote in college when I was in I'm sorry, I got to get this right. I was 34, 35. And I let my dad read it right before he died. He was working on my kitchen with my brother Lee. And I said, Dad, is this true, what I wrote? And he said, yeah, hon, it's all true. Your memory is 100%. And so my memories were right. And my father said that he filled me in on some details, that he went to the hospital with her. She was hemorrhaging and in horrible pain. My mother died a horrible death. And he said he was going to go back to work because they stabilized her. And when he went to go back to work, they called him back to the hospital because she was taking a turn for the worst. And my dad went back and stayed with her. And her last words were, I'm sorry, Al. My father told me that right before he died. He passed away like 5 years ago. That was her last words to my father, and then she flatlined. So she took that to her grave because she was ashamed. So, which meant for me and my two brothers, we grew up without a mother, without someone to talk to about problems, about someone to direct us to school, because I believe I would have really made a good life, because I know I did very well in college. I had to quit because I was there 2 years, but I had to quit because I had to raise two little girls. My son was older, and I had no money and no help, and so I had to quit to support my daughters. But my professors, I had her 2 years, she said I was an excellent writer, and she meant it. I have letters she wrote to me to get back, don't give up. So I don't know what would have become of me but I know it would have been better than the life that I've had. That I can tell you for sure. So I'm getting to a point here. Abortion. My mother would have been alive today if she would have been able to go to a doctor, a safe doctor, a good doctor, and get my mother an abortion because she just could not mentally, physically, financially handle having another child. And for that reason, as you might guess, I'm for women's rights. I would have had my mom. I would have had a different life for sure, because I know my mother really loved us. I know it. And would have been a great mom. She would have been a very strict mother, but she really loved us. And when I look at these pictures, this is one of my mother in the cafeteria of my aunt and uncle's cafeteria. That's me there. And that's my mom and my brother Bob. This was in the luncheonette right before she died. And I know how much she loved us because I never had money and I couldn't get really nice pictures of my little girls, like professionally done the way a lot of people can afford. Imagine affording professional pictures of your babies. I never had the money to do that. And my mom, as poor as she was, she did. She put out the money no matter what she cost. This is me and my brother Lee. I'm doing this so there's no glare. There we go. That was when I was probably 9 months old. Lee was about 2. And she got these professional pictures done of us. What does that tell you? And anyway, so for you people out there that are voting for a Republican Party for reasons of abortion rights, I get how you feel. I do. We don't ever want to see a baby gone, but you can't control other people's lives or feelings or reasons for not wanting to have their babies or whatever. I don't believe it's anyone's choice but the mothers, because they will die. If they take that right away, more women like my mom are going to be dead and not raise the children that they have. So, and a lot of people complain because women have children and they can't afford them and they shouldn't have them. And maybe they shouldn't have gotten pregnant, but it happens. Back in the 60s, forget it. There wasn't what you call contraceptives and things like that. So I even feel more bad for my mom because she should have lived and had taken care of her 3 kids, and 2, 5, and 7. And I have to tell you, there's more to this story. You don't know what it is to grow up without a mother unless you grow up without a mother. And people that grow up without mothers, you can tell. I can tell. I've met several people, and they're young or they're older, and they have this certain thing about them that's missing, and they have this empathy that other people don't have. And I know I can always say, I would say to my daughter, like she was dating a kid named Mark, and then her husband, Cliff, I knew right away. I said, they're different. They're like me. And I told my daughter, did his mother die? And she would say, yeah, Mom. How did you know? You know, because we're different. There's not a day that goes by, and this is what I wrote in my paper, that I don't miss my mother. I think about it, what it would have been like to have her here. I think about what she would have looked like. I think about what we would have done together. I think about how many times she would have stopped me from doing things I shouldn't have done because I had no direction in life. My dad was a wonderful man, but he was so busy making a living, taking care of the bills, trying to forget about my mother dying. He never married again, so... You know, I asked him one time, Daddy, why don't you get married again? He goes, because no one can replace your mother. And that's what he said to me. And no one could, really. So it was really hard. It was a really hard life for me and my brothers, Bob and Lee. And my brother Lee is successful, but he works us too much, and I worry about him. My brother Bob has a lot of depression. I worry about him. And he's been a good husband. They've both been married more than 40 years. Carol's and Lee is going on 50. Me, no. I had married at 17, and he left me for another woman. My second husband was not good, abusive, so we didn't stay married very long. I never knew how to pick a man, really. It was, my third husband was my heart, my soulmate, the one I showed you a picture of, Chris, and I still believe he is my soulmate, but he's gone now. So, anyway, that's the story of my mom, and I hope that this story, I know everyone has their political beliefs and that they probably don't believe in abortion and they don't believe it's right to take a baby's life or whatever, but I just want you to just think about this a little more clear. Accidents happen, and it's a woman's right to choose, because I'm telling you, if there isn't, more women are going to die. They will. Because they're going to find some way. If you take the clean, good doctor's right of doing what's necessary for the woman. So, I'm on the fence, but I have made up my mind how I feel. And it's up to everybody else to say their feelings. It's up to you. But I lost my mom because of that. Because she was a devout Catholic and ashamed of her choice. So she decided to do it herself. And went underground, and she did it. So thank you for listening to the story of my mom, Gerry. I appreciate it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again with another DIY. Not another sad story right now. Her name was Geraldine Hawn, and I miss her every day of my life. And I wish that my daughters and my son could have had a grandmother to look out for them. So take care, and God bless. I'll pray for you. Please pray for me. Take care.